Come on over closer. Come on in a little closer. All right, sound check. I'm Jeff Anderson. I am one of the lawyers that am here today, standing with three courageous survivors that appear here, and a fourth who is also standing with us in having brought this lawsuit. And this lawsuit is against every Catholic bishop in Illinois and the conference, their organization, that each of them are a part of, in a conspiracy of silence, a conspiracy of secrecy, a conspiracy of self-protection and scandal avoidance that is causing a hazard and a danger in real time today. This lawsuit that each of these survivors have joined in bringing is to address that hazard and the choices that each of these bishops are making every single day in keeping secrets. Those secrets are the names of the offenders that they know to be in and out of ministry. Those secrets are those files that they have kept for decades that show not only the offenses against the children, but those top officials complicit in it that they have chosen to hide, past and present. This lawsuit and the survivors with whom we stand here today are here to sound an alarm. The alarm: danger, danger, danger. And this lawsuit and their courage in standing up and sharing their sorrow and their truth is designed to hold each bishop and their conference, which is their organization, accountable in disclosing the secrets that they've held, the dangers that they know of that are yet to be disclosed. This lawsuit is called public nuisance, or conspiracy to hide a public hazard. And the hazard is not just the offending priests, past and present, but those in positions of power that are complicit in those crimes, top officials. This lawsuit seeks the excavation and requires the disclosure of all of that information. Now, the Catholic bishops in Illinois have said, at least some of them, well, we've made some disclosures. And in a settlement that we made with the Archdiocese of Chicago some years ago, there were disclosures made of offenders they knew to be credibly accused. And when I point to, and Cindy, why don't you go over for a moment, stand right here, when I point to the Catholic bishops here, the Archdiocese of Chicago has made a disclosure of what they call credibly accused offenders. And they've disclosed and listed that there are 68 credibly accused offenders. This lawsuit challenges this bishop and this Archbishop, Supish, to come totally clean, because when they say there are 68 offenders credibly accused in the Archdiocese of Chicago, that's a half-truth. Why so? Because they have not disclosed the names of the offenders they know to be who are dead. And all the kids who they hurt, the sorrow and the pain is evergreen for them. That needs to be told, and that needs to be known. And in the 68 that they have disclosed, they've also chosen not to disclose the names of the offenders who were religious order priests, who actually were working in the Archdiocese at the time they offended kids. And they have chosen not to disclose those names. So the 68 disclosed, and the information and files that we disgorged in a settlement made some years ago, is not the full truth. Hazard. Danger. Half-truth. Similarly, in the Diocese of Joliet and Bishop Conlon, they've also made some disclosures. Similarly, not of the offenders deceased, and not of the religious order of priests who have offended in the Diocese of Joliet. Half-truth. Non-disclosure. Then when we look at the Diocese of Peoria and Bishop Jenke, they have posted that there are 16 individual priests who they have deemed to be credibly accused of assault of minors who are not in ministry. What about the ones that have been accused that are in ministry? Bishop Jenke, danger. Danger. We have 3 other dioceses. We have Bishop Braxton in the Diocese of Belleville. Not one disclosure made by that bishop or his predecessors listing those that they've deemed to even be credibly accused. Nothing. Silence. Bishop David Malloy, Diocese of Rockford. And in this lawsuit, the Diocese of Rockford is sued by 2 different survivors for their gross failures and their refusal to disclose the truth involving the hazard. And you'll hear more about that. Most importantly, Bishop Malloy in the Diocese of Rockford has not disclosed any lists of offenders accused or credibly accused. Nothing. Silence. Secrecy. Suppression of truth they know to be. And then we have Bishop Thomas Paprocki, formerly of the Archdiocese of Chicago, who is the bishop of the Diocese of Springfield, and also no disclosure at all. Nothing. Nothing listed on their website. Never have made known anything public about any of the offenders. 3 dioceses with no disclosure, 3 others with partial disclosure, danger, danger, danger. When we refer to Bishop Paprocki, we also see not only in their actions and the choices they've made to keep secrets, we see in their words an attitude. It is Bishop Paprocki who said, "It is the devil who is the principal force behind survivors coming forward." It is the devil. Cindy, you're coming forward today. Are you the devil? Darren, you're coming forward today. Are you? No. Josh? What do you want?
For this to finally be over with?
You want it to be over with, you want the truth. So, hear that, Pepperaki. Hear that. Archbishop Cardinal Blaise Supich, fairly new on the scene in Chicago, but it's also the same Cardinal Archbishop that said to the community of faith in the public, more recently, quite recently, that the Pope has a bigger agenda than abuse. To get on with other things, and we're not going down a rabbit hole. Those are his words. This lawsuit, and these survivors are standing here today to demand the truth. That this isn't a rabbit hole and they're not the devil. All they want is the truth known so that kids can be protected. And they want these bishops to come clean and stop hiding and concealing the actual truth and the danger that is present in real time. And so, with those words, I'd like to start with you, Darren, and have you come forward and introduce yourself. And Cindy, stand with me here.
Hi there, I'm Darren Buckman. I was sexually abused by Father Anderson probably 38 years ago.
Hold up that picture of yourself.
He took away my manhood and my childhood. I knew I had to come to this so no other one child would be sexually abused again, especially in the Catholic Diocese. I'm very fortunate to meet some other survivors, and I had called the lawyer, Jeff and Mark here, probably about 2.5 years ago, and I am still waiting for a response back from Peoria.
Darren, you are holding a picture of yourself as a kid at the time you were violated by this priest, John Anderson, right?
Yes.
John Anderson is alive. John Anderson is retired with faculties. Darren Buckman called us 2.5 years ago and said, I was violated. I was assaulted by this priest, and he identified him. We immediately contacted the Diocese of Rockford. We immediately contacted Bishop Jenke and his chancellor, Patricia Gibson. We demanded answers that Darren wanted about the priest and what they knew. We demanded that they address him and respond to his concerns and to get information. And every response that we sent to Patricia Gibson and Bishop Jenke was ignored. 2 years ignored. How'd that make you feel?
Rejected. You got to remember, once something happens like this, what comes into most things is blame, my fault, depression, anxiety, alcoholism. It's part of the avenue of coping with what had happened.
Well, Darren, you are joined as among the other 3 survivors here in this action, and what you're seeking from Bishop Jenke and that Diocese of Rockford is for them to just come clean and tell the truth.
Absolutely.
Excuse me, I said Rockford, it's Peoria. Peoria. Bishop Jenke in Peoria, Patricia Gibson, Chancellor in Peoria. Thank you, Mark. And thank you, Darren. Cindy, I'd like you to come forward and introduce yourself and then tell us more.
I am Cindy Yesko, and this is me at 6 years old.
around the age when I was abused, sexually abused, by 2 different priests. And there was a bishop at the time who knew about it.
And I'm holding up pictures of 2 different priests that you have referred to in the complaint. And they are Father Stanley Junker and Father Louis Schlangen. How do you pronounce it? Schlangen. Correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
That is correct. So, at the time, I was too little to do anything about it. I was really scared, and it was overwhelming. I remember clearly in the late 80s and my late teens, early 20s, I said, someday I will be healthy enough and I will be healed enough that I'm going to do something about this. But for right now, I just need to heal. I just need to get myself better so that I can stand someday, because this is a problem. It is a problem because I was not the only child who was unsafe. There were many, many children who were unsafe, and it is still going on, and our children are not protected. And so in 2006, I went forward to the bishop in my diocese where this happened.
And this is the Diocese of Springfield.
Yes.
And it was then Bishop Lucas. And Diocese of Springfield currently is Bishop Paprocki,
Yes.
the one that ascribed survivors coming forward to be devils. And in the Diocese of Springfield, when you came forward in 2006, it was then Bishop Lucas.
Yes.
What was the response of the diocese and the bishop to your truth that you were willing to share with him as an adult in 2006?
So I shared my entire story in 2006 in the summer. And it wasn't until summer of 2007 I got any response. And the response was, we want you to have a meeting with Bishop Lucas, and it's going to be an apology and an acknowledgement. And I went into that meeting prepared for that. And what happened instead was I was seated at a conference table, and he was across from me, and he stared at me in silence, not saying a word, until I began to squirm and cry, and then eventually start to shut down. And I thought to myself, this is wrong, and I need to find my voice to say this is wrong. So I had one side of my brain saying, wait, I'm a victim, and this is really bad, and what's happening to me right now is dangerous. It was bad enough it happened when I was 6 years old, but now I'm being intimidated as an adult. And I had another side of me saying, wait, I'm being traumatized again. This is a second trauma. And I'm going to find my voice to say no, because when I was this age, I had no resources. I was just a little child. I couldn't stand up to anybody. Look at me. How was I going to do that? And so I said to Bishop Lucas, this is wrong. What you are doing is wrong. I came here thinking this was an apology and an acknowledgement for what I went through. And the only reason I came forward was because there are children that are being hurt. This man, Father Lou, is still alive. He was dead. I knew he wasn't going to hurt anyone else. He had the potential to be hurting children. And I said, worse, he's a pastor in a parish with children. And you let a whole year pass since I came forward. This is dangerous. Please help.
He was alive at that time, now deceased, but remained a pastor. And after you met with Bishop Lucas seeking both apology and action, what was Bishop Lucas's response, and what action did he take?
No response. No action.
And could you say the year again? What year was that?
In 2007, when I finally met with him.
So not 30 years ago,
No.
2007.
2007. No response. No action.
And there was another woman that preceded you that gave a similar account
That is correct.
to the diocese and to the bishop
That is correct.
right before and about the same time that you did.
Right.
And to this day, you have never gotten acknowledgement, apology, or anything amounting to action by the then Bishop Lucas or the current bishop in the Diocese of Springfield,
That
right?
is correct.
And so, what do you want to have happen here as a result of this action you're taking today, Cindy Yesko?
So I want to call on all of the bishops for help. Please help. This is a situation that can be changed. This is not a situation that we need to have stay like this. There is something that can be done. There are vulnerable children still out there, and there are predator priests in ministry, active ministry, who have access to those children. And complaints have been made against them already, but the information is not transparent. And bishops, I do not believe that when you came into this world, you came here to cover all of this up and to look the other way as children are being hurt. You're the leaders of the flock. Please do the right thing. You're the leaders of the flock. Please do the right thing.
Catholic bishops in Illinois, hear that plea. It's a simple plea. It's a simple plea to be a part of the solution instead of the problem. Bishops in Illinois, from Springfield to Peoria to Rockford to Joliet to Belleville and across the state, hear the plea. And to be a part of the solution and not the problem is so simple. It's what you preach, the simplicity of truth. And all these survivors, and each of them that stand with us, and in this lawsuit, want is you and your organization to stop conspiring to hide the truth and simply say the truth and speak it authentically. Because when you do, and when we force you to, because we will, if you don't, healing can begin and the communities are a little safer. Thank you, Cindy Yesko. Darren. Josh, I want you to come forward for a moment and introduce yourself. And before you do, I want to go back to no, I'm gonna have you go. And do you have your picture? Why don't you grab that?
It's one of those. I think it's like hiding right there. I think it's upside down.
Right there?
I think so.
Okay.
Yes.
There it is. Okay, introduce yourself and tell us what we need to know.
My name is Josh Pullman, and I'm here because during the sacrament of confession, when I was 12 years old, I was raped by a priest named Peter Kohler. And I just want to continuously say the message that anybody that was abused by anybody to come forward, because what happened to you is happening right now to some other child or some other person, and they need all the help they can get. With great power comes great responsibility.
And as a kid at the age of 12, in the sacrament of confession, and any Catholic knows how powerful the priest is over the penitent, in this case, you, a 12-year-old boy, is. And when this priest raped and violated you, you couldn't tell. But you have today. And from this trauma, and you stand with us today, Josh Bowman, what do you want the bishops to do?
To finally completely come clean and not any partial truths, nothing, just clean slate completely, and get
Simply tell the truth and show the people what they have about the dangers that exist, right?
Yeah.
Anything else you want to share with us?
No, thank you.
Josh Bowman, we thank you for standing up and standing with these courageous survivors. We have one other sorrow to share, because it's a part of this lawsuit, and it's on behalf of a survivor identified in the lawsuit as John Doe 595. He's not identified because he made the choice to stay private and preserve his own privacy. And he wants, as do we, every survivor out there to know you can come forward. The same way Doe 595 has. You can share your secret. You can take action. And you can maintain your privacy and remain a Jane Doe or a John Doe. In this case, Darren, Josh, and Cindy chose to use their names, and John Doe chose to not. And 98% of the survivors with whom we work and have for the last decades choose to remain silent and private, at least as to their identity. And I just want folks to know that John Doe did come forward, joined in this suit. He's identified as 595. The priest that offended him is this priest, Monsignor Charles Beebe, B-E-E-B-E. Monsignor Beebe is alive. Monsignor Beebe is in ministry. And he is in ministry as we speak in the Diocese of Peoria. Bishop Jenke. Bishop Jenke. How dare you? Gratitude to Doe 595 and every other survivor that comes forward and is willing to share the secret and take some action to make the community safer, because they're not. With these bishops making these choices and these decisions to hide offenders, to keep secrets, not disclose the information they have about who the offenders are, where the risks are, and who's been complicit in those crimes, and the files that they have, and that each of these bishops keep secret in their chancery. And under the Code of Canon Law and orders from the Vatican, each of them have files on every offender, and they keep those files secret. This lawsuit seeks to disgorge the pertinent information about the actual dangers, not just who the offenders are, but who is complicit in the crimes as they have been occurring in the past and are occurring in the present. Because all these survivors want, and all we seek today through this lawsuit, is a measure of truth. And not a partial truth, not a half-truth, and not deflection, not deception, or denial, which is what each of these folks have experienced when they came forward. But the simplicity of the truth and the power that can bring in helping them heal and other survivors like them, and the knowledge that other kids will be protected. Very simply. Mark Perlman.
Thank you. My name is Mark Perlman. I am honored to be here with these very courageous survivors today on this very, very important day. I just have a few comments to add. A couple of months ago now, the grand jury report from Pennsylvania came out, and the reaction from the public was shock. And frankly, Jeff and I, and those that we represent, the survivors, weren't shocked at all. The only thing in that grand jury report were things we've known for decades. The grand jury report from Pennsylvania set out the playbook. And you can erase the name Pennsylvania and put in Illinois, because it's the same playbook these gentlemen follow. And if we were in New York or California, it's the same playbook. This has been going on for decades. And people have been aware and are outraged by the perpetrators of these crimes, as are we. Equally disturbing, if not more disturbing, is the fact that the people in leadership, these gentlemen, who knew about it, allowed it, transferred these perpetrators to do it more again and again and again, and lied about it. That's more disturbing. These gentlemen are supposed to know better. We know that 1 of 5 children, 20 out of 100, is sexually abused. So whatever number's out there, multiply it by many, many times. And those statistics are skewed because we also know that of the 1 or 2 of 20 that come forward, in minority cultures and populations, the number's far less. In the African American community, in the Hispanic community. And today is about protecting children, making sure these gentlemen do what they're supposed to do, and reaching out to all those that are suffering in silence to let them know it's safe. You could come forward, you could use your name or not use your name. But there is a community out here ready and prepared to stand with you and help you. Thank you.
The grand jury report in Pennsylvania referred to a playbook. That same playbook is employed by every bishop across this country and has been used and continues to be in so many ways by the Catholic bishops in Illinois. Thus, their whole organization is sued for conspiracy here in maintaining a public nuisance, past and present. I think it needs to be noted that while the Archdiocese of Chicago, under a settlement that we made with them 5 years ago, where they disclosed a whole bunch of files and disclosed a whole bunch of offenders, that was progress, and we made that deal with them. But it also needs to be known today, and said today, as it is in this lawsuit, that their disclosure of 68 offenders credibly accused is not enough. It's a half-truth. In the Archdiocese of Chicago, the Archdiocese of St. Paul, Minneapolis, when we sued them for nuisance, for just as these survivors did, at that time they had disclosed 30 offenders. By the time we got to court and got a court order requiring a full and complete disclosure, the number went to 91 or 99. More than 3 times. So when we see the number 68 in Chicago, we know it's not the ordered priests, we know it's not the deceased priests, and we know it's underreported. Same goes with the Diocese of Joliet. They've identified 35. We know it's underreported. And how many isn't as important as what they're going to do about it and what we're going to make them do about this. Similarly with the others, the disclosure made by the Diocese of Peoria and Bishop Jenke in saying there are 16 not in ministry, well, what about the ones that are? And BB is one. The reality is there's grave danger in Illinois. The Catholic bishops are the ones that have made the conscious choices. And they have the power to do something about it. These survivors have the power to share their truth and take legal action. And it's very unfortunate that it's the survivors that are doing the cleanup. But the reality is that it's the courage of the survivors that are causing changes to be made. And it's a lack of courage by the bishops that are causing them to keep the secrets and hide the truth. That's the truth. Thank you all. Go ahead.
Yeah, one more comment. I get asked often whether anything has changed. And the answer is a little bit, but not nearly enough. A little bit. And one of the problems is that when you have the leaders of these institutions, of these dioceses, making comments like Bishop Papriki did, or that Cardinal Supich did, that this is a distraction, that there's a bigger agenda, the sex abuse is a distraction, or calling survivors devils, how can there be real change if the leader of your institution doesn't believe in it? And until they come clean, own it, and stop making those kind of comments, no real change is going to happen.
This has gone longer than we expected. We'll open it up for questions.
In Illinois, the Attorney General has set a task force looking into this. Have you been in contact with her? Are you aware of any progress? Are you working with her as part of that?
So the question is, in Illinois, the Attorney General has set up an investigation and a task force, and it appears to be quite rigorous. And the question is, are we working with them?
Yeah.
We know that they're working hard, and for today, we will tell you that we know they're working hard and have demonstrated some rigor, and I think that's what we'll say about that today. And I'll also say that there are a number of attorney generals and law enforcement across the U.S. now that have begun to investigate, and we see promise, great promise, in what the Attorney General in Illinois is doing as we speak.
Do you think Cardinal Supich should step down?
Do I think Cardinal Supich should step down? I think every single bishop that has made the conscious choice to hide the truth, to harbor offenders, present and past, and then refer to survivors the way he has, and claim that the Pope has a higher agenda than dealing with the sexual abuse scandal, and to say that the Pope needs to get on with other things, and then to say that they're not going to go down this rabbit hole, for him to demonstrate and say those words, that attitude in real time today, he does not deserve to hold that position until he comes clean and discloses all those secrets. And then once he does and demonstrates who he knows to be complicit and reflected in the files and in his possession and kept secret, then maybe he deserves to be reinstated. But not until then. He's got to come clean, then he may deserve consideration for that. That's our view. That's the view of any survivor that knows what they've had to endure because of the culture of secrecy that he's a part of. And that's a demonstration of a culture of denial.
Why a public nuisance lawsuit rather than suing for the conduct?
Well, the public nuisance, the question is why the public nuisance lawsuit as opposed to for the conduct itself. In some of these cases, the conduct itself is also got a separate claim for damages. But in Cindy Yesko's case, and in all these cases, the gravamen of this complaint and why they filed together is for public nuisance. That is the maintenance of a current public hazard. And what we know in the law, in our own experience in other states, Minnesota, California, and other places, through public nuisance, we can force these bishops to do something they have refused to do. And that is disclose the names and the identities of the offenders that they know have offended children, past and present. We know through the public nuisance lawsuits that we have brought and we are bringing here that we can force them to turn over files that show the commission of these crimes and what top officials were complicit in them. And then we can turn those files over to law enforcement so those complicit can be investigated and those who have committed the crimes can be investigated. And thus, we believe that public nuisance is the most powerful law club we have in civil law that we've been able to use in these cases to force them to do the simple thing of disclosing and disgorging the truth that they themselves have no capacity to do, as demonstrated by their conduct.
So there's broader relief and broader remedies.
Yeah. Quite simply, we can ask the court to order it, and that's exactly what we're doing.
With the priest in Peoria, since he's alive, has he ever been investigated for sexual abuse, and should he be arrested and prosecuted for that?
Well, the priest that's alive in Peoria, Beebe, who has just been outed here today, should he be prosecuted and should he be investigated? And should the Diocese of Peoria and Bishop Jenke and Patricia Gibson, the Chancellor, come clean about that? Of course, that's what this lawsuit seeks. And action is required. And kids aren't safe while they're continuing the secrecy.
I know Darren touched on it, but can some of the survivors talk about how how the abuse has affected their lives going into adulthood and how it's affected today?
Well, one of the things we've chosen to do today, and the survivors chose to do today, is talk about why they're standing up and why they chose to bring this action, working with us, to address that instead of individually talking about the horrors they've lived and endured.
Just how it has affected them.
Yeah.
I'm not asking them to go into details of what happened to them, but how it's affected them to this day.
Well, I think I'd like one of you to talk, Cindy, about how it's affecting you to this day, knowing that they're doing what they're doing. Why don't you address that?
So I already shared that when I was 20 years old, I said, I'm not healthy enough, I'm not healed enough to do something about this. I need to get myself better because this devastated me on all levels, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, every which way. But that's when I was 20. And how it affected me is I woke up every single morning saying, God, help me heal more today so that I can be ready when that day comes, when I get to stand somewhere. I don't know where. I don't know how you're going to make it happen. I don't know how the opportunity is going to arise for me, but someday I will stand and I will work to protect the children who are still being hurt. And so it affected me by igniting a passion in my heart to protect kids that I don't know if I would have had otherwise. Maybe, but this pushed it along to the point where I am passionate that this has to happen. Children do not need to get hurt this way. It's a lifelong sentence of healing.
And Cindy Yesko, it deserves to be emphasized that your suit in this case is for the public nuisance only.
Correct.
Does not seek any damages.
Correct.
But seeks only abatement of the nuisance.
Yes.
And that means demanding that the court order them to comply with orders of disclosure and to come clean. And to that end, as you know, they're keeping secrets. And as you know, Bishop Lucas denied your plea for acknowledgement and stood silent and continued as he had in 2006 and 2007 to the present. How is that affecting you today as you work on your own recovery, knowing that he chose to ignore you then, and the bishop currently continues to the same practices he employed when you came forward?
So I absolutely love the Catholic Church. It is my heart's home. I was not the kind of kid who went to church and just tuned it out. I memorized everything. And I said it back to myself, and I said those prayers in earnest. And when those blessings came on me at the end of Mass, I knew that they were for me from God, from my God. And how this has changed me is I don't have a safe home anymore in my church. The church is not the building, and it's not the people. It's much bigger than that, thank God. But I can't worship in the building the way that I used to be able to before I met with Bishop Lucas. I went to him in full faith that he would do something. I was absolutely shocked at the response. I expected him to take action. I was beside myself after that. And I realized the church is not safe for anyone anymore. Because I think about the priests who are in there. There are innocent priests who are not part of this, who are being looked at sideways as well. Nobody knows what's safe and what's not safe anymore.
So you continue to worry.
I worry all the time.
And this is a final note, and I want to make it because one of the cases here also names the La Salette Missionary Fathers. They are members of religious order. And it was the priest that abused you, Josh. Correct?
Yes.
It was that priest that abused him that was a member of a religious order, the La Salette Fathers, in the diocese at the time, assigned at the time. So this lawsuit also seeks and requires them to come clean, not only with the history of the offender we know violated Josh, but any other they know to be in their files. And so this is an exhortation and a warning to all the other religious orders who have priests assigned in all these dioceses in Illinois, because there are a lot of them. Come clean. Make the disclosure. Because if you don't, the survivors and we are coming at you until it's done. Because kids aren't safe until you do. Thanks all. Thanks, John.